Have you ever really stopped to wonder why you feel this constant need to react, to defend yourself, to explain your side, to always prove a point? We're living in a time where the world is loud. Everyone's talking, yelling, trying to be heard, but barely anyone truly listens. And even worse, nobody seems to be okay with silence anymore, because silence feels awkward. It uncovers things. It shows what's real. It doesn't let you run or hide. Now think about it. How often have you said something without thinking? How many times did you wish you had just stayed quiet? How many moments has speaking up actually made you feel smaller, not stronger? That's not by accident. It's how you were trained. You were told that speaking up is strength, that staying silent means you agree, that if you don't clap back, you're weak. But here's the truth. They lied to you. Of the most intense and unsettling minds in history saw things completely differently. To him, real power didn't lie in speaking. It lived in restraint, in controlling yourself, in purposeful silence, because when used with intention, silence becomes a weapon and one of the deadliest. Nietzsche believed that the true force driving human beings, the will to power, doesn't show up in those who scream the loudest but in those who stay calm and grounded. In the middle of chaos, while the world drowns in noise, the true master stays still, watching, thinking, waiting, and when he finally speaks, everyone stops to listen. But this video isn't just about Nietzsche, it's about you, about what you've been too afraid to face in your own mind, about the fear that creeps in when you're left alone with your thoughts, about how your need to speak up, to be seen and approved of, might be the very thing holding you back, keeping you weak, dependent, and easily controlled. It's not an easy topic. It's raw, it's uncomfortable, but it's necessary. So before we move forward, I'm going to challenge you. Stay with me until the end. Don't interrupt this silence that's beginning to rise inside you, because what you're about to hear today might not be what you want to hear, but it's exactly what you need to hear. Nietzsche wasn't just another philosopher. He didn't write to comfort people or to be easily understood. He wrote like someone throwing knives not to harm, but to wake you up. And one of his most misunderstood, yet deeply powerful ideas is the will to power. A lot of people think it's about controlling others, dominating, or gaining external power. But Nietzsche was speaking about something much deeper. The art of mastering yourself. True strength, according to Nietzsche, lies in your ability not to react. That's right, not reacting is a power move. In today's world, we're taught to see power in quick replies, fast moves, and always being on alert. But Nietzsche understood that this kind of behavior comes from a mind that's trapped, ruled by impulse and the constant urge to prove itself to others. The true Overman is someone who's risen above that. He doesn't react on autopilot because he's no longer controlled by his ego or the need to impress. He doesn't need to explain, doesn't need to defend because he knows he's already enough. Most of the time, reacting is a form of surrender. It shows that someone else has touched your emotions, shaken your balance, and pulled the response out of you. Nietzsche teaches us that when you react, you expose your weak points, your pain, your insecurities, your triggers. Silence, on the other hand, is protection, but not the kind that hides. It's a strong, steady presence. A quiet mind that understands real power comes from within. If you want to truly be powerful, then learn to hold back. Learn to watch the storm without getting swept up in it. Because while others burn themselves out fighting battles that don't matter, you grow stronger in your stillness. And it's in that quiet space where you've mastered the urge to act on impulse that real power is created. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Why is silence so hard for us? Why does noise pull us in, even when it's hurting us? That's what we're going to explore next. What silence really is, and what all this noise is trying to cover up. Silence has a deep psychological effect. It shows us things. And honestly, most people are scared to death of what might surface when the world finally goes quiet, because without the noise, there's nothing left to distract you. When there's no distraction, the things you've buried inside start to rise. Your insecurities, your fears, your guilt, your frustration. All the stuff you keep shoving under the rug with constant talking, staying busy, reacting nonstop, that's your mental anesthesia. And the worst part, you don't even know you're doing it. Modern psychology tells us that our minds are wired to run from emotional discomfort. So we talk, we scroll, we fill every moment with noise music, texts, notifications, anything to avoid facing that deep, uncomfortable silence inside. Carl Jung once said, "What you resist persists." And what do we resist most? Facing our own emptiness. Nietzsche got this. He saw that today's world isn't suffering from too much pain, but from too much distraction. We've drowned ourselves in shallow talk, hollow opinions, an ego-driven drama that feeds a fake version of ourselves. But silence, it shatters all of that. It forces you to look at yourself without hiding behind words. And that's why real silence, the kind that comes from deep awareness, is so powerful. It takes guts. Being silent doesn't mean being passive. It's a form of resistance, a rebellion against a world that taught you your worth is in your words, not in your being. Silence breaks that pattern. It pauses the social noise. It gives you back control over your own self. But here's the thing, silence alone isn't the goal. It needs direction. It needs purpose. It has to be strategic. And in the next part, you're going to learn how silence can become your greatest weapon. Not to hurt, but to lead, to influence, to win. Because what separates a silent fool from a silent master? One simple thing. Intention. The first stays silent because of fear, the second because of control. And here's one of the toughest truths about power. If you can't master your own silence, you won't truly master anything else. Nietzsche didn't see silence as running away. For him, silence was a sign of strength, a way to show the will to power in action. The silence of the overman isn't shy, withdrawn, or uncertain. It's deliberate. It's a strategy. He doesn't go quiet out of submission. No, he's already figured out that people who talk nonstop are selling themselves short, and those who react too fast end up giving their emotional secrets away to the opponent. Let's be real. When you're in a confrontation, the one who talks the most usually loses ground. They're explaining too much, justifying themselves, showing too much of who they really are. Silence, when used carefully, acts like a mirror. It forces the other person to fill the silence, to reveal their own doubts and weaknesses. They try to cover the emptiness with words, but all they do is expose their own fragility. Have you ever met a leader who doesn't need to shout to command a room? Have you ever been face to face with someone who, just by holding your gaze or staying silent a moment longer, made you second guess what you were about to say? That's the magic of strategic silence. It builds tension, and tension is where real influence lives. You don't need to throw out 100 arguments. If you know how to control the timing and flow of the conversation, when to speak, and just as importantly, when to stay quiet. In social psychology, this is called nonverbal status communication. People who truly feel powerful tend to speak less, pause longer, and choose their words like they're precious sand. That's because they are. They don't waste time trying to convince anyone. Instead, they make others question themselves. This isn't something they're just born with. It's a skill. And Nietzsche saw this clearly, almost instinctively. Silence isn't about being absent. It's about being more present, louder, without making a sound. But for silence to be a real weapon, you need a solid base. A place where silence isn't empty, but full, rich, and heavy. And that place exists only in one place: conscious solitude. In the next part, we'll dive into why solitude isn't the enemy of a strong person, but actually the birthplace of transformation. How silence gains true power when it comes from a deep, unshakable place inside. Most people fear being alone like it's some kind of punishment. They avoid it, cover it up, numb it out. They fill every minute with noise, every space with people, every quiet moment with distractions. Because being truly alone means facing yourself without anything to hide behind. And for many, that's just too much to bear. But Nietzsche looked at loneliness differently. Not as a curse, but as a gift. A sacred space where your spirit gets stronger, where you stop being a rough sketch and start becoming a masterpiece. He said, "He who cannot endure solitude does not love freedom." That hits hard, because deep down, everyone says they want freedom. But freedom takes a kind of strength. Most aren't ready to build the strength to exist without needing others to approve of you. The courage to be complete, even when no one's watching. The silence that comes from choosing to be alone isn't empty, it's like magic. It's in these quiet moments that you start to hear things. Life's chaos never let you notice your real voice, your honest needs, your hidden worries, your deepest dreams, everything the daily grind has pushed down, everything society has silenced, everything you've been avoiding yourself. Loneliness is the lab where your true self begins to show up, stripped of all masks and free from outside expectations. Nietzsche believed that a truly strong spirit is known by how well it can handle being alone, because in solitude, it doesn't break, it shows its true face. It doesn't get weaker, it rebuilds itself. Most people run from being alone because it forces them to face their inner mess. But the strong ones seek it out, knowing that only by diving into that chaos can they find real order inside. And here's the key. This is where the kind of strategic silence we talked about earlier really takes shape. It's not just being quiet to seem powerful. It's being quiet because you've already won the battle inside. There's no need anymore to prove yourself, to be seen, or to get a reaction. Now, silence isn't just a shield, it becomes part of who you are. And there's something even deeper. Silence, born from chosen solitude, doesn't just protect you. It heals. It clears away what's not needed. It frees what's been trapped. It uncovers what was hidden. It makes all the noise around you die off from exhaustion. However, there comes a moment when this force grows even stronger, when silence transforms from a refuge into a language, a silent scream louder than any spoken word. In the next part, we'll explore why silence, at certain times, speaks more powerfully than any how you can make it your strongest message. There are moments when silence isn't just the absence of noise, it becomes absolute presence. It fills the space like an invisible giant suffocating the room, disarming egos, tearing off masks. It asserts itself without ever raising its voice. And when silence holds that power, no argument can confront it, because words can be challenged, but true silence is uncontestable. Nietzsche saw this with brutal clarity. He understood that omission can destroy more than any heated debate. Well-timed silence is a denial, an affront, a verdict. When you choose not to respond, you're not just stepping back. You're saying with brutal elegance, "You don't deserve my energy." This isn't arrogance. It's hierarchy. In a world desperate for attention, those who choose silence rise above the noise. They don't compete, they dominate. That's why well-used silence is one of the sharpest forms of psychological power. Imagine a heated argument. When someone suddenly falls silent, the other person becomes desperate. They poke, they prod, they try to provoke a reaction. Because silence reveals something deeply unsettling. The other is calm, at peace. And nothing is more powerful than serenity in the face of attack. Silence becomes a mirror. It reflects the other's lack of control, their absurdity, their anxiety. But beware, this isn't about silence out of fear or omission. It's about knowing you hold the power to destroy and choosing not to, because you've already won. This victory is invisible to shallow eyes, but felt deeply by those who try to hurt you. Silence also has another role. It amplifies what is said. A single word dropped after a long silence carries more weight than any flood of words ever could. It's like a precise strike following a pause, impactful, unforgettable. Nietzsche said words are just symbols for how things relate to each other and to us. Silence, however, is the symbol of the unattainable, something beyond language. It belongs to those who no longer feel the need to justify themselves. But there is a final stage where this power becomes most refined, when silence isn't just a weapon, but identity itself, when it becomes your way of existing in the world. To master silence, not as someone hiding, but as someone who has transcended the need to prove anything. Here lies the essence of what Nietzsche called true strength, power that is not displayed, but deeply felt. In the last part of this video, we will close this journey by revealing what it truly means to live, carrying silence as a symbol of power, And we will ask you a final question, one you might never have the courage to answer. Are you ready for that? Silence is not for everyone. It demands something few dare to develop inner solidity, because being silent while the world screams is an act of war. A war against ego, addiction to validation, and the impulse to react to every poke. That's why most fail. They talk too much, react too much, expose too much, desperately trying to prove a worth they haven't found within. Nietzsche knew this. Those who explain all the time have already lost. Those who defend themselves endlessly are still not at peace. True power is silent because it simply is. It doesn't seek approval. It doesn't rush. It doesn't need to convince. And when you reach that point, when silence stops being an effort and becomes your natural state, something changes. People listen differently. They look at you differently. They feel your presence even without a single word. This is not mysticism. It is psychology. It is energy. It is mastery. But don't be fooled. This path is lonely. It asks you to swim against the current of urgency, haste, and the collective hysteria all around us. It demands that you endure the discomfort of emptiness until you realize that this emptiness was actually full of you all along. And that's when everything changes. You stop reacting impulsively and start acting with intention. You speak less, but when you do, you shift the whole environment. You stop chasing being heard, because those who truly have something to say don't need to chase an audience. Now, tell me, will you keep getting lost in the noise? Or will you learn to use silence as your sharpest weapon? Will you keep giving your power away to anyone who provokes you? Or will you take back control of your own mind? If this video challenged you, if it made you confront something deep within, comment below. I choose silence. Just that. Those who understand will know. Those who don't, it doesn't matter. And if you're ready to continue this transformation, don't stop here. The next video is even more important than you. Imagine, because your evolution won't wait. And the world needs your strength in silence. For more insights like this, make sure to subscribe to Join the journey where silence speaks louder than words.